In the dusty corner of an antique shop, tucked between cracked teacups and tarnished silverware, sat a doll. She was small, with porcelain skin, glassy blue eyes, and a delicate pink dress that had faded with time. Her lips were curled into a faint, knowing smile, as if she held a secret no one could guess. A tiny tag hung from her wrist, written in elegant cursive, "Make a wish." No one ever bought the doll. She was too eerie, too unsettling. But one rainy afternoon, a girl named Clara wandered into the shop. She was 12, with a heart full of dreams and a life full of disappointments. Her parents were always fighting, her grades were slipping, and her best friend had moved away. When she saw the doll, something about it called to her. "How much for this one?" Clara asked, holding up the doll. The shopkeeper, an old woman with a face like crumpled paper, smiled faintly. "Ah, the wishing doll. She's special. Be careful what you wish for, dear." Clara didn't think much of it. She paid for the doll and took it home, placing it on her bedside table. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared at the doll's serene face. "I wish my parents would stop fighting," Clara whispered. The next morning, Clara woke up to silence. No shouting, no slamming doors. She crept downstairs and found her parents sitting at the kitchen table, their faces blank, their eyes empty. They didn't speak. They didn't move. It was as if they were frozen. Clara's heart raced. "Mom? Dad?" Her mother turned to her, her expression vacant. "We're not fighting anymore," she said in a monotone voice. Clara backed away, horrified. She ran upstairs and grabbed the doll. "What did you do?" she demanded, shaking it. The doll's glassy eye seemed to glint with amusement. Desperate to fix things, Clara made another wish. "I wish my parents were normal again." Instantly, she heard her parents' voices downstairs, loud, angry, and full of life. Relief washed over her. But when she went downstairs, she found them arguing over something trivial, their faces red with rage. It was worse than before. Clara realized the doll's wishes came with a price. But she couldn't help herself. She had to try again. "I wish I was the smartest kid in school," she whispered that night. The next day, Clara aced every test, solved every problem, and answered every question. But her classmates started avoiding her. Teachers looked at her with suspicion. By the end of the week, she was alone, sitting at a desk in the corner while everyone whispered about her. "I wish I had friends again," Clara cried, clutching the doll. The next day, a group of kids approached her at recess. They smiled and laughed, inviting her to play. But something was off. Their eyes were too wide, their smiles too forced. They followed her everywhere, never leaving her alone, even when she begged them to. They weren't friends, they were shadows. Clara was terrified. She threw the doll into her closet and vowed never to touch it again. But that night, as she lay in bed, she heard a faint voice. "You have one wish left," it whispered. Clara sat up, her heart pounding. "Who's there?" The closet door creaked open, and the doll stepped out, its porcelain face glowing in the moonlight. "One last wish," it said, its voice sweet but menacing. "Make it count." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I just want everything to go back to normal." The doll smiled. "As you wish." The next morning, Clara woke up in her bed, the sun streaming through her window. Her parents were downstairs, laughing over breakfast. Her friends texted her, asking if she wanted to hang out. School was easy again, but not too easy. Everything was perfect. Clara sighed with relief. It had all been a bad dream. She glanced at her bedside table, where the doll sat, its smile as innocent as ever. But as she left the room, the doll's head turned slightly, its glassy eyes following her. And in the reflection of the mirror, Clara's own smile looked eerily similar to the doll's, too wide, too knowing. Because the doll's final wish had come true. Everything was back to normal. Except for Clara. Clara tried to go about her day, but something felt off. Her movements were stiff, her skin felt cold, and her reflection in the mirror seemed to flicker, as if it wasn't quite her. She reached up to touch her face and gasped. Her fingers felt hard, like porcelain. Panicking, she ran to her parents. "Mom, Dad, something's wrong with me." Her parents turned to her, their smiles too wide, their eyes too bright. "Nothing's wrong, dear," her mother said in a sing-song voice. "You're perfect." Clara stumbled back, her heart pounding. She looked down at her hands and saw the faint cracks running along her skin. She was turning into the doll. She rushed to the closet where she had thrown the doll, but it was gone. Instead, she found a small, handwritten note on the floor. It read, "Thank you for freeing me." Clara's vision blurred as she felt her body stiffen, her limbs locking into place. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. The last thing she saw was her reflection in the mirror, a porcelain doll with glassy blue eyes and a faint, knowing smile. And in the corner of the room, a shadow moved. It was the doll, now alive, with Clara's face and a wicked grin. "Your turn," it whispered, before disappearing into the darkness. From that day on, the doll sat on Clara's bedside table, waiting for the next child to make a wish. And Clara, now trapped in the doll's body, could only watch as her twisted fate unfolded, her glassy eyes forever locked in a silent scream.